Wait, no. Stop. Hi. Is this working? I really hope this is working. It's been a long time. Well, yeah, I don't know. It's been a little while since I've used YouTube to stream. I am lost. I am confused. I started the stream and then I was a minute into the opening thing and I was like, wait, it doesn't actually look like I'm live. And so I had to restart, because you need to press the go live button about 3 separate times before you actually go live on YouTube. YouTube is not having you go live accidentally. It's not happening. You cannot go live by accident on this website. Hello. Hello, Ledge. Hello, other dogs. Hello, Pluve. Hello. Greetings. I hope you're all having a good night. Welcome to YouTube stream. Welcome to the new home of Cozy Reading Hour. Oh, it's very weird being here. Since we are on YouTube, I will refer to you by the names that you have on YouTube. But if you want me to refer to you by your Twitch name, just tell me. And if it's not immediately obvious who you are, then tell me your Twitch name. But hopefully it'll be fine. Just thinking about it, it's like, please refer. Okay. Number one Puri fan. I'm so okay. Hug's fine. Okay, cool. In which case, I will refer to you by Twitch names, with the exception of Pluvium, who I always refer to as Pluvium regardless. But yeah, I hope you're all having a good night. I hope you're all taking care. My apologies for missing stream earlier. I just really, I wasn't doing so good. And I'm still not maybe in the best of spirits, but I will overcome it for reading. I just 4 hours is a decently long time to try and make sure that I'm being my usual self. So I wanna give cozy vibes, not wow, Puri is Manhara, please can someone help? So Gomen. It's hard to communicate without my headpats emote, but wait, it really well, if you write out the names of my, I mean, I can't say for all emotes. oh, it's being held for review. No, that's allowed. I permit 2008. There you go. Interesting. I can't see messages that are being held for review in my OBS, but I can see them in my YouTube. YouTube Studio. That's really weird. All right, bear with me as I learn how this works properly. This is a process. Virtual. That's true. But yeah, if you write if you write the names of my emotes and some of the emotes that are more often used in my stream, I will try and recognize what they are. So I know Purity 7 Wave and Money Flower. Can I confess something? I feel guilty. I may have led someone to believe. Who thinks I? Oh no! Who thinks I'm a Fujo? Who did you make think I was a Fujo? Who do I have to? Who needs to be reinformed? You're not a Fujo. No, I'm not a Fujo. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you were watching me with the expectation that I was a Fujoshi. And I'm not. Honestly. Shakes my head. Numbers likes Fujo, so it's, oh, you told Numbers I was a Fujo? Oh, but Numbers is gonna be so disappointed when it's not true. I'm not a Fujo. Why are you telling people I'm a Fujo? Why are you leading people astray? This is terrible. I thought Pluvium was Numbers. You aren't? Is everyone? Wait, what? How? Are we having identity crises in chat now? That rat is big if true. Who knows? I don't know who anyone is. It's fine. You don't. It's fine. We can all just be person A and person B. It's fine. Anyway. Hi. Welcome to Reading Stream. I should probably give a proper introduction for anyone who stumbles upon this VOD, since these aren't going to be archived, and this will kind of be like the first one. These are reading streams. They are live. I am reading from the book. I have it in my hands. I just lost my page. Okay. So I can't. The general introduction of this book is like insane. Okay, there we go. Let's not do that again. I have the real books in front of me. I have read 3 other books on Twitch so far and uploaded the VOD to one of them on YouTube so far. But I am moving to YouTube so that the VODs can be stored indefinitely with less effort. Hello, Calamity. While I'm reading, I will not be responding to chat. However, as soon as I've finished, whether that is the end of the short story or the chapter, I will pause and I will catch up with everything that I missed in chat. I think you're cool. It's actually very cold right now. I am pretty cold. I have like a little bit of my leg that isn't covered by blanket or sock. Like my knee is just, it's got a very cold draft on it. It's very cold. Very cold. Take the cover. No. I don't wanna. So we are reading short stories because as we just finished Inkheart, I need to go collect some new books from my dad's house before we move on to anything else long form. So I'm reading short stories from the Penguin Book of the British Short Story. The first one, of which I've already written the name of next to me here, which is Unpleasantness at Bloodley Court, written in 1929, which means the copyright has expired and I can read this to my heart's content. That is actually I hunted down books or collections of books that didn't have copyright on them anymore so that I could read them on YouTube. All part of my ploy. So yeah, we're gonna read books and it's gonna be fun, or maybe not fun, but relaxing. Unless you find relaxing fun. Maybe you find relaxing fun, in which case it's fun. I'm nervous. I'm nervous on YouTube. I'm nervous being here. I don't know how this website works. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so we're gonna start reading. This, I'm not really sure whether. Yeah, so I'm not sure whether there's actually going to be anything in the form of a break in the short story, but we'll see. But if I do not break until the end of stream, then I do hope, if you're planning on getting some rest, please do rest well. If you're working, if you're busy, I hope that goes well for you. Thank you, Robert. And yeah, I don't have reading live redirects on YouTube, so you should not be woken up at the end of stream. You should be safe to get some rest. So let me know if I need to adjust my volumes of anything, if the music's too quiet or I'm too loud or anything like that. I did some messing about with stuff since I've changed programs, so. Alright. We will get started though. But thank you everyone who's come to my YouTube stream. I know that YouTube isn't everyone's preferred platform anymore, so thank you. Alright. Unpleasantness at Bloodley Court. The poet who was spending the summer at the Angler's Rest had just begun to read us his new sonnet sequence when the door of the bar parlour opened and there entered a young man in gaiters. He came quickly in and ordered beer. In one hand he was carrying a double-barreled gun, in the other a posy of dead rabbits. These he dropped squashily to the floor, and the poet, stopping in mid-sentence, took a long, earnest look at the remains. Then, wincing painfully, he turned a light green and closed his eyes. It was not until the banging of the door announced the visitor's departure that he came to life again. Mr. Mulliner regarded him sympathetically over his hot scotch and lemon. "You appear upset," he said. "A little," admitted the poet. "A momentary malaise. It may be a purely personal prejudice, but I confess to preferring rabbits with a rather more of their contents inside them." "Many sensitive souls in your line of business hold similar views," Mr. Mulliner assured him. "My niece Charlotte did." "It is my temperament," said the poet. "I dislike all dead things, particularly when, as in the case of the above rabbits, they have so obviously, shall I say, blatantly made the great change. Give me," he went on, the greenish tinge fading from his face, "life and joy and beauty." Just what my niece Charlotte used to say. Oddly enough, that thought forms the theme of the second sonnet in my sequence, which, now that the young gentleman with the portable morgue has left us, I will. "My niece Charlotte," said Mr. Mulliner with quiet firmness, "was one of those gentle, dreamy, wistful girls who take what I have sometimes felt to be a mean advantage of having an ample private income to write vignettes in verse for the artistic weeklies. Charlotte's vignettes in verse had a wide vogue among editors of London's higher-browed but less prosperous periodicals. Directly, those frugal men realized that she was willing to supply unstinted vignettes gratis for the mere pleasure of seeing herself in print. They were all over her. The consequence was that before long she had begun to move freely in the most refined literary circles, and one day, at a little luncheon at the Crushed Pansy, the restaurant with a soul, she found herself seated next to a godlike young man at the sight of whom something seemed to go off inside her like a spring. "Talking of spring," said the poet, "Cupid," proceeded Mr. Mulliner, "has always found the family to which I belong a ready mark for his bow. Our hearts are warm, our passions quick. It is not too much to say that my niece Charlotte was in love with this young man before she had finished spearing the first anchovy out of her hors d'oeuvres dish. He was intensely spiritual looking, with a broad white forehead, and eyes that seemed to Charlotte not so much eyes as a couple of holes punched in the surface of a beautiful soul. He wrote, she learned, pastels and prose, and his name, if she had caught it correctly at the moment of their introduction, was Aubrey Trephasis. Friendship ripens quickly at the Crushed Pansy. The poulet rôti au croissant had scarcely been distributed before the young man was telling Charlotte his hopes, his fears, and the story of his boyhood, and she was amazed to find that he sprang not from a long line of artists, but from an ordinary, conventional county family, of the type that cares nothing for except hunting and shooting. "You can readily imagine," he said, helping her to Brussels sprouts, "how intensely such an environment jarred upon my unfolding spirit. My family are greatly respected in the neighbourhood, but I personally have always looked upon them as a gang of blood-imbued pug uglies. My views on kindness to animals are rigid. My impulse, on encountering a rabbit, is to offer it lettuce. To my family, on the other hand, a rabbit seems rather incomplete without a deposit of a small shot in it. My father, I believe, has cut off more assorted birds in their prime than any other man in the Midlands. A whole morning was spoiled for me last week by the sight of a photograph of him in the Tatler, looking rather severely at a dying duck. My elder brother Reginald spreads destruction in every branch of the animal kingdom, and my younger brother Wilfred is, I understand, working his way up to the larger fauna by killing sparrows with an air gun. Spiritually, one might just as well live in Chicago as at Bloodley Court." "Bloodley Court?" cried Charlotte. "The moment I was 21 and came into a modest but sufficient inheritance, I left the place and went to London to leave the life literary. The family, of course, were appalled. My Uncle Francis, I remember, tried to reason with me for hours. Uncle Francis, you see, used to be a famous big-game hunter. They tell me he has shot more gnus than any other man who ever went to Africa. In fact, until recently he virtually never stopped shooting gnus. Now, I hear, He has developed lumbago and is down at Bloodley treating it with Riggs' superfine emulsion and sunbaths. But is Bloodley Court your home? That's right. Bloodley Court, Lesser Bloodley, near Goresby on the Ouse, Bedfordshire. But Bloodley Court belongs to Sir Alexander Bassinger. My name is really Bassinger. I adopted the pen name of Trephysis to spare the family's feelings. But how do you know to come of this place? I'm going down there next week for a visit. My mother was an old friend of Lady Bassinger. Aubrey was astonished, and being, like all writers of pastels and prose, a neat phrase-maker, and he said what a small world it was after all. Well, 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 he said. From what you tell me, said Charlotte, I'm afraid I shall not enjoy my visit. If there's one thing I loathe, it's anything connected with sport. Two minds with but a single thought, said Aubrey. Look here, I'll tell you what. I haven't been near Bloodley for years, but if you're going there, why, dash it, I'll come too. Aye, even though it means meeting my Uncle Francis. You will? I certainly will. I don't consider it safe that a girl of your exquisite refinement and sensibility should be dumped down at an abattoir like Bloodley Court without a kindred spirit to lend her moral stability. What do you mean? I'll tell you. His voice was grave. That house exercises a spell. A what? A spell. A ghastly spell that saps the strongest humanitarian principles. Who knows what effect it might have upon you, should you go there without someone like me to stand by you and guide you in your hour of need? What nonsense! Well, all I can tell you is that once, when I was a boy, a high official of our dumb brothers' League of Mercy arrived there, lattish, on a Friday night, and at 2:15 on that Saturday afternoon, he was the life and soul of an informal party got up for the purpose of drawing one of the local barrages out of an upturned barrel. Charlotte laughed merrily. The spell shall not affect me, she said. Nor me, of course, said Aubrey. But all the same, I would prefer to be by your side, if you don't mind. Mind, Mr. Bassinger? Breathed Charlotte softly, and was thrilled to note that at the words and the look with which she had accompanied them, this man to whom, for, as I say, we Mulliners are quick workers, she had already given her heart, quivered violently. It seemed to her that in those soulful eyes of his, she had seen the love light. Bloodley Court, when Charlotte reached it some days later, proved to be a noble old pile of Tudor architecture, situated in rolling parkland and flanked by pleasant gardens leading to a lake with a tree-fringed boathouse. Inside, it was comfortably furnished and decorated throughout with groves of glass cases containing the goggle-eyed remains of birds and beasts assassinated at one time or another by Sir Alexander Bassinger and his son, Reginald. From every wall there peered down with an air of mild reproach selected portions of gnus, moose, elks, zebus, antelopes, giraffes, mountain goats, and wapiti, which had the misfortune to meet Colonel Sir Francis Pashley Drake before lumbago spoiled him for his chase. The cemetery also included a few stuffed sparrows, which showed that little Wilfred was doing his bit. The first 2 days of her visit Charlotte passed mostly in the society of Colonel Pashley Drake, the Uncle Francis to whom Aubrey had alluded. He seemed to have taken a paternal fancy to her, and, lively though she dodged down the backstairs and passages, she generally found him breathing heavily at her side. He was a red-faced, almost circular man, with eyes like a prawn's, and he spoke to her freely of lumbago, news, and Aubrey. So you're a friend of my young nephew? He said, snorting twice in a rather unpleasant manner. It was plain that he disapproved of the pastel artist. Shouldn't see too much of him if I were you. Not the sort of fellow I'd like any daughter of mine to get friendly with. You're quite wrong, said Charlotte warmly. You have only to gaze into Mr. Bassinger's eyes to see that his morals are above reproach. I never gaze into his eyes, replied Colonel Pashley Drake. Don't like his eyes. Wouldn't gaze into them if you paid me. I maintain his whole outlook on life is morbid and unwholesome. I like a man to be clean, strong, upstanding Englishman who can look a new in the face and put an ounce of lead in it. Life, said Charlotte coldly, is not all news. You imply that there are also wapiti, moose, zebus, and mountain goats? Said Sir Francis. Well, maybe you're right. All the same, I'd give the fellow a wide berth if I was you. So far from doing so, replied Charlotte proudly, I am about to go for a stroll with him by the lake this very moment. And, turning away with a petulant toss of her head, she moved off to meet Aubrey, who was hurrying towards her across the terrace. I am so glad you came, Mr. Bassinger, she said to him as they walked together in the direction of the lake. I was beginning to find your Uncle Francis a little excessive. Aubrey nodded sympathetically. He had observed her in conversation with his relative, and his heart had gone out to her. 2 minutes of my Uncle Francis, he said, is considered by the best judges a good medium dose for an adult. So you find him trying, eh? I was wondering what impression my family had made on you. Charlotte was silent for a moment. How relative everything is in this world, she said pensively. When I first met your father, I thought I had never seen anybody more completely loathsome. Then I was introduced to your brother Reginald, and I realized that, after all, your father might have been considerably worse. And just as I was thinking that Reginald was the furthest point possible, along came your Uncle Francis, and Reginald's quiet charm seemed to leap out at me like a beacon on a dark night. Tell me, she said, has no one ever thought of doing anything about your Uncle Francis? Aubrey shook his head gently. It is pretty generally recognized now he is beyond the reach of human science. The only thing to do seems to be to let him go on till he eventually runs down. They sat together on a rustic bench overlooking the water. It was a lovely morning. The sun shone on the little wavelets which the sighing breeze drove gently to the shore. A dreamy stillness had fallen on the world, broken only by the distant sound of Sir Alexander Bassinger murdering magpies, of Reginald Bassinger encouraging dogs to eviscerate a rabbit, of Wilfred busy among the sparrows, and a monotonous droning noise from the upper terrace, which was Colonel Sir Francis Pashley Drake telling Lady Bassinger what to do with the dead new. Aubrey was the first to break the silence. How lovely the world is, Miss Mulliner. Yes, isn't it? How softly the breeze caresses yonder water. Yes, doesn't it? How fragrant a scent of wild flowers it has. Yes, hasn't it? They were silent again. On such a day, said Aubrey, the mind seems to turn irresistibly to love. Love? Said Charlotte, her heart beginning to flutter. Love, said Aubrey. Tell me, Miss Mulliner, have you ever thought of love? He took her hand. Her head was bent, and with the toe of her dainty shoe she toyed with a passing snail. Life, Miss Mulliner, said Aubrey, is a Sahara through which we all must pass. We start at the Cairo of the cradle, and we travel on to the... we go travelling on. Yes, don't we? Said Charlotte. After we can see the distant goal. Yes, can't we? Would fain reach it. Yes, wouldn't we? But the way is rough and weary. We have to battle through the storms of destiny, face with what courage we may the howling simoons of fate, and very unpleasant it all is. But sometimes in the Sahara of life, if we are fortunate, we come upon the oasis of love. That oasis, when I had all but lost hope, I reached at 1:15 on the afternoon of Tuesday, the 22nd of last month. There comes a time in the life of every man when he sees happiness beckoning to him, and must grasp it. Miss Mulliner, I have something to ask you, which I have been trying to ask ever since the day since we two first met. Miss Mulliner, Charlotte, will you be my... Gosh, look at that whacking great rat, said Aubrey, changing the subject. Once, in her childhood, a sportive playmate had secretly withdrawn the chair on which Charlotte Mulliner was preparing to seat herself. Years had passed, but the recollection of the incident remained green in her memory. In frosty weather she could still feel the old wound. And now, as Aubrey Basinger suddenly behaved in this remarkable manner, she experienced the same sensation again. It was as though something blunt and heavy had hit her on the head at the exact moment when she was slipping on a banana skin. She stared round-eyed at Aubrey. He had released her hand, sprung to her feet, and now, armed with her parasol, was beating furiously in the lush grass at the waterside. And every little while his mouth would open, his head would go back, and uncouth sounds would proceed from his slavering jaws. Yoicks, 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 crazed Aubrey. And again, tally-ho, half forward, tally-ho. Presently, the fever seemed to pass. He straightened himself and came back to where he stood. It must have got away into a hole or something, he said, removing a bead of perspiration from his forehead with the ferrule of the parasol. The fact of the matter is, it's silly ever to go out in the country without a good dog. If only I'd have the nice nippy terrier with me, I might just have obtained some solid results. As it is, a fine rat, gone, just like that. Oh, well, that's life, I suppose. He paused. Let me see, he said. Where was I? And then it was as though he had waked from a trance. He flushed, his flushed face paled. I say, he stammered, I'm afraid you must think me awfully rude. Pray do not mention it, said Charlotte coldly. Oh, but you must, dashing off like that. Not at all. What I was going to say, when I was interrupted, was, will you be my wife? Oh? Yes. Well, I won't. You won't? No. Never. Charlotte's voice was tense, with a scorn which she did not attempt to conceal. So this is what you were all the time, Mr. Basinger? A secret sportsman. Aubrey quivered from head to foot. I'm not. It was the hideous spell of this ghastly house that overcame me. Pah! What did you say? And I said pah! Why did you say pah? Because, said Charlotte with flashing eyes, I do not believe you. Your story is thin and fishy. But it's the truth. It was as if some hypnotic influence had gripped me, forcing me to act against all my higher inclinations. Can't you understand? Would you condemn me for a moment's passing weakness? Do you think, he cried passionately, that the real Aubrey Basinger would raise a hand to touch a rat, save in a way of kindness? I love rats, I tell you. I love them. I used to keep them as a boy. White ones with pink eyes. Charlotte shook her head. Her face was cold and hard. "Goodbye, Mr. Basinger," she said. "From this instant, we meet as strangers." She turned and was gone. And Aubrey Basinger, covering his face with his hands, sank on the bench, feeling like a sandbagged leper. The mind of Charlotte Mullinger, in the days which followed the painful scene which I have just described, was torn, as you may well imagine, with conflicting emotions. For a time, as was the natural, anger predominated. But after a while, sadness overcame indignation. She mourned for her lost happiness. And yet, she asked herself, how else could she have acted? She had worshipped Aubrey Basinger. She had set him upon a pedestal, looked up to him as a great white soul. She had supposed him one who lived far above this world's coarseness and grime, on a rarefied plane of his own, thinking beautiful thoughts. Instead of which, it now appeared, he went about the place chasing rats with parasols. What could she have done but spurn him? That there lurked in the atmosphere of Bloodley Court a sinister influence that sapped the principles of the most humanitarian and sent them ravening to and fro, seeking for prey, she declined to believe. The theory was pure banana oil. If such an influence was in operation at Bloodley, why had it not affected her? No. If Aubrey Basinger chased rats with parasols, it could only mean that he was one of nature's rat chasers. And to such a one, cost what it might be to refuse, she could never confide her heart. Few things are more embarrassing to a highly strung girl than to be for any length of time in the same house with a man whose love she has been compelled to decline, and Charlotte would have given much to be able to leave Bloodley Court. But there was, it seemed, to be a garden party on the following Tuesday, and Lady Basinger had urged her so strongly to stay on for it, that departure was out of the question. To feel the leader moments, she immersed herself in her work. She had a long-standing commission to supply the Animal Lovers Gazette with a poem for its Christmas number, and to the task of writing this she proceeded to devote herself. And gradually the ecstasy of literary composition eased her pain. The days crept by. Old Sir Alexander continued to maltreat magpies. Reginald and the local rabbits fought a never-ceasing battle, they striving to keep up the birth rate, he to reduce it. Colonel Pashley-Drake maundered on about news he'd met, and Aubrey dragged himself about the house, looking licked to a splinter. Eventually, Tuesday came, and with it, a garden party. Lady Basinger's annual garden party was one of the big events of the countryside. By 4 o'clock, all that was bravest and fairest for miles round had assembled on the big lawn. But Charlotte, though she had stayed on specially to be present, was not one of the gay throng. At about the time when the first strawberry was being dipped in its cream, she was up in her room, staring with bewildered eyes at a letter which had arrived by the second post. The Animal Lovers Gazette had turned her poem down. Yes, turned it down flat, in spite of the fact that it had been commissioned and she was not asking a penny for it. Accompanying the rejected manuscript was a curt note from the editor, in which he said that he feared its tone might offend his readers. Charlotte was stunned. She was not accustomed to having her efforts rejected. This one, moreover, had seemed to her so particularly good. A hard judge of her own work, she had said to herself, as she looked the envelope, that this time, if never before, she had delivered the goods. She unfolded the manuscript and reread it. It ran as follows. Good news. A vignette in verse. by Charlotte Mulliner. When cares attack and life seems black, how sweet it is to pot a yak, or puncture hares and grizzly bears, and others I could mention. But in my animals' who's who, no name stands higher than the new. And with each new that comes into view receives my prompt attention. When Afric's sun is sinking low, and shadows wander to and fro, and everywhere that's in the air a hush that's deep and solemn, then is the time, good men and true, with the view halloo pursue the new. The safest spot to put your shot is through the spinal column. To take the creature by surprise, we must adopt some rude disguise. Although deceit is never sweet, and falsehoods don't attract us, so, as with gun in hand you wait, remember to impersonate a tuft of grass, a mountain pass, a copy or a cactus. A brief suspense, and then at last the waiting's o'er of the vigil pass. A careful aim, a spurt of flame, it's done, you've pulled the trigger, and one more new, so fair and frail, has handed in its dinner pail. The females are all rather small, the males are somewhat bigger. Charlotte laid the manuscript down, frowning. She chafed at the imbecility of editors. Less than ever was she able to understand what anyone could find in it to cavil at. Tone likely to offend? What did the man mean about the tone being likely to offend? She had never heard such nonsense in her life. How could the tone possibly offend? It was unexceptionable. The whole poem breathed that clean, wholesome, healthy spirit of sport which has made England what it is. And the thing was not only lyrically perfect, but educational as well. It told the young reader, anxious to shoot news but uncertain of the correct procedure, exactly what he needed to know. She bit her lip. Well, if this animal lover's bird didn't know a red-hot contribution when he saw one, she would jolly well find someone else who did. And quick, too, At this moment, something occurred to distract her thoughts. Down on the terrace below, little Wilfred, complete with airgun, had come into her line of vision. The boy was creeping along in a quiet, purposeful manner, obviously intent on the chase. And it suddenly came over Charlotte Mulliner in a wave that she had been in this house the whole time and never had once thought of borrowing the child's weapon and having a plug at something with it. The sky was blue. The sun was shining. All nature seemed to call to her to come out and kill things. She left the room and quickly ran down the stairs. And what of Aubrey meanwhile? Grief having slowed him upon his feet, he had been cornered by his mother and marched off to hand cucumber sandwiches at the garden party. After a brief spell of servitude, however, he had contrived to escape and was wandering on the terrace, musing mournfully when he observed his brother Wilfred approaching. And at the same moment, Charlotte Mulliner emerged from the house and came hurrying in their direction. In a flash, Aubrey perceived that here was a situation which, shrewdly handled, could be turned greatly to his advantage. Affecting to be unaware of Charlotte's approach, he stopped his brother and eyed the young thug sternly. "Wilfred," he said, "where are you going with that gun?" The boy appeared embarrassed. "Just shooting." Aubrey took the weapon from him and raised his voice slightly. Out of the corner of his eye he had seen that Charlotte was now well within hearing. "Shooting, eh?" he said. "Shooting? I see. And have you never been taught, wretched child, that you should be kind to the animals that crave your compassion? Has no one ever told you that he prayeth best for who loveth best all things great and small? For shame, Wilfred, for shame. Charlotte had come up and was standing there, looking at them inquiringly. What's all this about? She asked. Aubrey started dramatically. Miss Mulliner, I was not aware that you were there. All this... Oh, nothing. I found this lad here on his way to shoot sparrows with his air gun, and I am taking the thing from him. It may seem to you a high-handed action on my part. You may consider me hypersensitive. You may ask, why all this fuss about a few birds? But that is Aubrey Bassinger. Aubrey Bassinger will not lightly allow even the merest sparrow to be placed in jeopardy. Tut, Wilfred, he said. Tut, can you see now how wrong it is to shoot the poor sparrows? But I wasn't going to shoot sparrows, said the boy. I was going to shoot Uncle Francis while he's having his sunbath. It is also wrong, said Aubrey after a slight hesitation, to shoot Uncle Francis while he is having his sunbath. Charlotte Mulliner uttered an impatient exclamation, and Aubrey, looking at her, saw that her eyes were glittering with a strange light. She breathed quickly through her delicately chiselled nose. She seemed feverish, and a medical man would have been concerned about her blood pressure. Why? She demanded vehemently. Why is it wrong? Why shouldn't he shoot his Uncle Francis while he's having his sunbath? Aubrey stood for a moment, pondering. Her razor-like feminine intelligence had cut cleanly to the core of the matter. After all, now that she put it like that, why not? Think of how it would tickle him up. True, said Aubrey, nodding. True. And his Uncle Francis is precisely the sort of man who ought to have been shot with at air guns incessantly for the past 30 years. The moment I met him, I said to myself, that man ought to be shot at with air guns. Aubrey nodded again. Her girlish enthusiasm had begun to infect him. There is much in what you say, he admitted. Where is he? Asked Charlotte, turning to the boy. On the roof of the boathouse. Charlotte's face clouded. She said. That's awkward. How is one to get at him? I remember Uncle Francis telling me once, said Aubrey, that when you went shooting tigers, you climbed a tree. There are plenty of trees by the boathouse. Admirable. For an instant there came to disturb Aubrey's hearty joy in a chase of brief, faint flicker of prudence. But, I say, do you really think... Ought we? Charlotte's eyes flashed scornfully. Infirm of purpose, she said. Give me the air gun. I was only thinking... Well, I suppose you'll know he'll have practically nothing on. Charlotte Mulliner laughed lightly. He can't intimidate me, she said. Come, let us be going. Up on the roof of the boathouse, the beneficent ultraviolet rays of the afternoon sun pouring down on his globular surface, Colonel Sir Francis Pashley Drake lay in that pleasant half-waking, half-dreaming state that accompanies this particular form of lumbago treatment. His mind flitted lightly from one soothing subject to another. He thought of the elks that he shot in Canada, of mouflon he had shot in the Grecian archipelago, of giraffes he had shot in Nigeria. He was just on the point of thinking of a hippopotamus that he had shot in Egypt, when the train of his meditations were interrupted by a soft popping sound not far away. He smiled affectionately. So, little Wilfred was out with his air gun, eh? A thrill of quiet pride passed through Colonel Pashley Drake. He had trained the lad well, he felt. With a garden party in progress, with all the opportunities it offered for a quiet gouging, how many boys of Wilfred's age would have neglected their shooting to hang around the tea table and stuff themselves with cakes? But this fine lad... Ping! There it was again. The boy must be somewhere quite close at hand. He wished he could be at his side, giving him kindly advice. Wilfred, he felt, was a young fellow after his own heart. Oh, what destruction he would spread among the really worthwhile animals when he grew up and put aside childish things and exchanged his air gun for a Winchester repeater. Sir Francis Pashley Drake started. 2 inches from where he lay, a splinter of wood had sprung up from the boathouse roof. He sat up, feeling a little less affectionate. "Wilfred?" There was no reply. "Be careful, Wilfred, my boy, you nearly..." A sharp, agonizing twinge caused him to break off abruptly. He sprang to his feet and began to address the surrounding landscape passionately in one of the lesser-known dialects of the Congo Basin. He no longer thought of Wilfred with quiet pride. Few things so speedily modify an uncle's love as a nephew's airgun bullet to the fleshy part of the leg. Sir Francis Pashley Drake's plans for this boy's future had undergone in one brief instant a complete change. He no longer desired to stand beside him through his formative years, teaching him the secrets of the shikari. All he wanted to do was to get close enough to teach him with the flat of his right hand, but more careful where he pointed his gun. He was expressing a synopsis of his views in a mixture of Urdu and Cape Dutch, when the words were swept from his lips by the sight of a woman's face peering from the branches of a nearby tree. Colonel Pashley Drake reeled where he stood. Like so many outdoor men, he was the soul of modesty. Once, in Botswana land, he had left a native witch dance in a marked manner because he considered the chief's 3rd supplementary wife insufficiently clad. An acute consciousness of the sketchiness of his costume overcame him. He blushed brightly. "My dear young lady," he stammered. He had got thus far when he perceived that the young woman was aiming at him something that looked remarkably like an air gun. Her tongue protruded thoughtfully from the corner of her mouth, and she had closed one eye, and with the other was squinting tensely along the barrel. Colonel Sir Francis Pashley Drake did not linger. In all England there was probably no man more enthusiastic about shooting, but the fascination of shooting as a sport depends almost wholly on whether you are at the right or wrong end of the gun. With an agility which no one knew, unless in the very pink of condition, could have surpassed, he sprang to the side of the roof and leapt off. There was a clump of reeds not far from the boathouse. He galloped across the turf and dived into them. Charlotte descended from her tree. Her expression was petulant. Girls nowadays are spoiled, and only too readily become peevish when balked of their pleasures. "I had no idea he was so nippy," she said. "A quick mover," agreed Aubrey. "I imagine he got that way from dodging rhinoceroses." "Why can't they make these silly guns with 2 barrels? Single barrel doesn't give a girl a chance." Nestling among the reeds, Colonel Sir Francis Pashley Drake, in spite of the indignation natural to a man of his position, could not help feeling a certain complacency. The old woodcraft of the hunter had stood him, he felt, in good stead. Not many men, he thought himself, would have had the initiative and swift intelligence to act so promptly in the face of peril. He was aware of voices close by. "What do we do now?" he heard Charlotte Mulliner say. "We must think," said the voice of his nephew Aubrey. "He's in there somewhere." "Yes." "I hate to see a fine head like that get away," said Charlotte, and her voice was still querulous. "Especially after I winged him. The very next poem I write is going to be an appeal to airgun manufacturers to use their intelligence, if they have any, and turn out a line with 2 barrels. I shall write a pastel in prose on the same subject, agreed Aubrey. Well, what shall we do? There was a short silence. An insect of an unknown species crept up Colonel Pashley Drake and bit him in the small of the back. I'll tell you what, said Aubrey. I remember Uncle Francis mentioning to me once that when wounded zebus take cover by the reaches of the lower Zambezi, the sportsman dispatches a native assistant to set fire to... Sir Francis Pashley Drake emitted a hollow groan. It was drowned by Charlotte's cry of delight. Why, of course! How clever you are, Mr. Bassinger. Oh, no, said Aubrey modestly. Have you matches? I have a cigarette lighter. Then would it be bothering you too much to go and set light to those reeds? About there would be a good place. And I'll wait here with the gun. I should be charmed. I hate to trouble you. No trouble, I assure you, said Aubrey. A pleasure. 3 minutes later, the revellers on the lawn were interested to observe a rare sight at the better class of English garden party. Out of a clump of laurel bushes that bordered the smoothly mown turf, there came charging a stout pink gentleman of middle age, who hopped from side to side as he ran. He was wearing a loincloth and seemed in a hurry. They had just time to recognise in this newcomer their hostess's brother, Colonel Sir Francis Pashley Drake, when he snatched a cloth from the nearest table, draped it round him, and with a quick leap took refuge behind the portly form of the Bishop of Stortford, who was talking to the local master of hounds about the difficulty he had in keeping his vicars off the incense. Charlotte and Aubrey had paused in shelter of the laurels. Aubrey, peering through the zareba, clicked his tongue regretfully. He's taken cover again, he said. I'm afraid we shall find it difficult to dig him out there. He's gone to earth behind a bishop. Receiving no reply, he turned. Miss Mulliner, he explained. Charlotte, what's the matter? A strange change had come over the girl's beautiful face since he had last gazed at it. The fire had died out of those lovely eyes, leaving them looking like those of a newly awakened somnambulist. She was pale, and the tip of her nose quivered. Where am I? She murmured. Bloodley Manor, Lesser Bloodley, Goresby on the Ouse, Bedfordshire. Telephone 28 Goresby, said Aubrey quickly. Have I been dreaming? Or did I really... Oh, yes, she moaned, shuddering violently. Oh, it all comes back to me. I shot Sir Francis with the air gun. You certainly did, said Aubrey, and would have gone on to comment with warm approbation of the skill she had shown, a skill which, in an untrained novice, had struck him as really remarkable. But he had checked himself. Surely, he said, you are not letting that fact disturb you. It's the sort of thing that might have happened to anyone. She interrupted him. How right you were, Mr. Bassinger, to warn me against the spell of Bloodley, and how wrong I was to blame you for borrowing my parasol to chase a rat. Can you ever forgive me? Charlotte! Aubrey! Charlotte! Hush, she said. Listen. On the lawn, Sir Francis Pashley Drake was telling his story to an enthralled audience. The sympathy of the meeting, it was only too plain, was entirely with him. The shooting of a sitting sunbather had stirred the feelings of his hearers deeply. Indignant exclamations came faintly to the ears of the young couple in the laurels. Most irregular, not done, scarcely cricket. And then, from Sir Alexander Bassinger, a stern, I shall require a full explanation. Charlotte turned to Aubrey. What shall we do? Well, said Aubrey, reflecting, I don't think we'd better just go and join the party and behave as if nothing had happened. The atmosphere doesn't seem right. What I would propose is that we take a shortcut through the fields to the station, hook up with the 55 Express at Goresby, go to London, have a bit of dinner, get married, and yes, yes, cried Charlotte. Take me away from this awful house. To the ends of the world, said Aubrey fervently. He paused. Look here, he said suddenly. If you move over to where I'm standing, you get the old boy plumb sprang against the skyline. You wouldn't care for just one last... No, no. Merely a suggestion, said Aubrey. Ah, well, perhaps you're right. Then, let's be shifting. My eyes are not... Wow. The writing is a little bit smaller in that book than it was the last one. Hey, but that ended up timed perfectly. Let me... Some great British vernacular. Oh yeah, that was the tally-ho bit, wasn't it? This is what that song is about? Wait, which song? Which song? Pure banana oil is probably my new least favourite. I don't even know. I mean, the context of it was like banana oil is fake. I feel like banana oil is not fake. Is banana oil fake? Banana oil. No, banana oil is real. Oh wait. Nonsense. Oh, it means it's nonsense. Yeah, apparently it's like. So that was a short story from 1929. So you can definitely tell that the vocabulary has changed just a little bit in the last 93 years. 93? No. Yes? Yeah, 93 years. I think I did the math right. Double-barreled weaponry on. So my list of things goes like it's true. It's true. I think. Being surrounded by people talking like that sounds like an actual nightmare. As far as I'm aware, people only... That was kind of how the more influential circles spoke. My personal hell. Old Britain, old Britain, as it was in the 1920s and 30s, perhaps yes. I don't think anyone particularly acts like that anymore, apart from maybe like the very rich. But I don't come across anyone who speaks like they do in that book anymore. But yeah, there we go. So first I act like that. Well, when you start chasing around a rat with a parasol and yelling tally ho, then I'll start worrying. I actually wonder if Bloodsley is actually a real place. Probably not. It's probably a pun on like the whole blood. I mean, blood with 2 O's, and then the hunting. Either way, that ended up... Sorry, I'm stretching. That ended up timed pretty alright. I noticed... My music decided to pause halfway because I'm using YouTube to play a playlist of background music-y stuff. Might have been a mistake. I think I need to work out a better way to do that. Although it only pauses one time in the middle of a stream, so maybe it's not too bad. It won't be so bad once I'm back to reading like regular long form prose. No, yeah, yes, because the chapters will be shorter than that. But yeah, there we go. That is the beginning of reading streams on YouTube. It's real, right across from Bonechester and right next to Knivesbury. I wanna go to Knivesbury. Alright, so I'm actually planning on seeing family tomorrow. I don't know whether I'll get a chance to... I don't know whether I'll actually get a chance to pick up my old books in my dad's house, but I'll try. Next week we'll read from the other Penguin book I have, which is the Penguin book of Japanese short stories, where hopefully they've been translated in a little bit more of a contemporary reading style, talking style, because my apologies for my floundering over some words and sentences in that one. It was definitely not easy reading, for sure. But yeah, there we go. I've read a lot of undergraduate Japanese. It's much better than Old British. Well, we can compare properly next week. When I do get a chance to go to my dad's though, I will start the poll on Discord as soon as possible. But yeah, if there's anything that you notice during the stream that isn't working or isn't quite right, please do let me know. I'm still, obviously, I've only done a few streams on YouTube, so I'm still not entirely accustomed to this place. Yeah, is there anything else I noticed that you... that's gonna require more research. Maybe cats are just cuter on YouTube. Maybe it's something to do with the encoding. The stream's cows. Yeah, I think it's got to do with YouTube. I think there's something about YouTube and cats. It's just right. It's the natural environment for the you know when you see like a fish in a tiny little like bowl, and you're like, oh, that's not where it's meant to be. And then you have it's like an actual animal color. I never all this. Yeah, unlook at it. Going to repair full time. No, I don't need to be. I'm only a cat question mark. If I spend too much time here, the other cats will notice I'm not one of them. They'll find out I'm an imposter. But yeah, so this is my final day of using this model. This is my final stream with this model. Let me... Ooh? No, what? Unpin the... Get rid of the book. There we go. So this is the final time that this model is going to be visible. This is it. V2 is going away. Yeah, so thank you for saluting it as it disappears. Oh, the other one has. Can't believe Purity is about to be even cooler. So yeah. Hopefully V3 is just as comfy. I think you guys will like it. Reading stream continuity, nil. Fortunately, I'm only reading short stories at the moment, so there is no continuity required. However, once I start getting back into the long form, yeah, I'm gonna have to make sure that I'm nice and consistent. But I will be with the new model. I was planning on saving. See, I know we're getting a little bit too far past an hour now. But I was thinking of, so right now my new model doesn't really have like any extra outfits or hair or anything, but I did make sure to discuss with Josa the possibility of adding extra stuff. So in the future I'm thinking about getting like a set of comfy pajamas for reading streams. Would that be too dorky for me to have like it's like, hello, I've come to Cozy Reading Hour in my pajamas. You better be cozy, because I sure am. Happy birthday. Thank you. It's almost my birthday. We're nearly there. Pajama reading party. It would be very comfy. Pajamas are built to be comfy after all. But yeah. So, thank you for coming to a YouTube reading stream. I think, as long as there isn't something I missed, I'm pretty sure this all went well, so, yeah, we will continue being on YouTube from now on, so, probably should give a heads up, I will be making the waiting rooms for these streams 2 days in advance, most times, 1 or 2 days in advance. So if you get the notification that I'm live on YouTube when I'm not, it's because of the waiting room, and I apologize. I need to work out a way to make it not do that. Yeah. Alright. I think that's everything. So there's no raids, there's I can't send you off to anywhere else, but I do hope you enjoy the rest of your night. If you are getting some rest, if you're planning on sleeping soon, please do sleep well. If you're still at work or still working on stuff, I could do an offline raid or whatever it's called. That's true. I mean, I could... Numbers is still live. If you guys want to check out Numbers, go check out Numbers. Since you're not ready, I can probably do I love you without worrying about I mean, I've never had exactly the problem with that typing that, but I have definitely accidentally sent messages in the wrong chat because of raids. Thanks for streaming, thank you for coming. I'm appreciative that you guys decided to come to my YouTube reading streams as well. Because, like I said, I know YouTube isn't the most popular anymore, so for streaming, so thank you. I appreciate it. So please have a good night. I hope you enjoyed the stream, whether you're watching live or the VOD, and I'll see you soon. Good night. Get something to eat, get something to drink, get some rest, get some I don't know what else. Onyasumi. Good night.